Okay, this is the Board of Health meeting of August 21st. We have a quorum, including myself, Catherine Hilton, Noreen Pease, Arlene Reed, and Garrett Simonson. And there are lots of people here. And I would like a person named John and a person named Joseph's iPad to identify themselves, please, so that we can put them in the minutes. John or Joseph?
Joe Salvador. Is Joseph's iPad.
Yes. What's your, who's Joseph's iPad when it's at home?
What's that? Who's Joseph's iPad? Whoever's using it.
What's your last name, Joseph? I need to put
Salvador.
it in.
Salvador.
Oh, it's you, Joe. I didn't recognize you. Kind of upside down there.
It's
Okay.
me. I had nothing to do if I figured I'd listen to your meeting today.
Oh, great. We're a real source of entertainment, I know. Now, John, who are you? John may not actually be here. All right. Do I have my video on? No, I don't. I'm sorry.
No, you don't.
Sorry, it's been already a long day.
Yeah.
The convention is just keeping me up way past my bedtime, and I'm really feeling it. All right, am I on now?
You are.
I think Mary Jo Johnson has her hand up, Kat.
She does?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I am Mary Jo Johnson, even though it says I'm Melody Chartier. This is not my computer. So.
Oh, thank you. I'll put that. All right, thank you. Okay, will you put your hand down now? Thanks. All right. Board of Health, let's do some business here. First of all, can we approve the minutes of the previous meeting?
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, I move that we approve the meeting, the minutes of the August 7th Board of Health meeting.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Arlene?
Yes. Garrett?
Yes.
Noreen?
Yes.
Okay, and me, and Wim is not here. Okay, I have a minor item that's not on the agenda. Mary Ann reported to me that they have found a well, an abandoned well on the lot at 032. It's down near the road on the, I think, on the east side.
Oh my.
Okay, Wim says he's coming.
Okay.
And so I have instructed her to apply for a well demolition permit, which basically amounts to filling in the well. And she's going to consult this guy Ezra from the drilling company to find out what they recommend. You know,
Do we know whether it's a deep well or a dug well?
She says it's 9 feet.
Oh,
So
okay. Dug well.
presumably it's a dug well.
Yeah.
And last time we had a well demolition, the well expert who was on it, you know, I said, get it filled in with bentonite, but the well guy said in that particular place, it would have to be, that just wasn't going to be effective. And what we really needed to do was fill it with rocks. So I said, fine. Can I have your authorization to issue this well destruction permit once it gets properly submitted, presumably between now and September 4th?
Mm-hmm.
So moved.
Garrett.
Second. Oh,
Okay. And all in favor? Garrett?
Yes.
Arlene?
yes.
Noreen?
Yes.
Okay, and Kat. So I will issue that when it gets here. Try to keep them Try to keep them on the way. Don't see the link. Oh, yeah. Can somebody send the link to Wim?
I'll do it.
Thank you. We also have a sort of minor piece of business. 212 Wendell Road is being divided, and they have an application for a disposal works construction permit. It's lot H46. Claudia has seen it and recommended approval. The fees are paid. I would like to go ahead and issue that permit.
I'm sorry, Kat, is this a septic permit? What kind of
Yes.
permit?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Disposal works construction permit.
For
Okay.
new construction, is that right?
It is new construction, yeah.
New Construction.
Yeah, because they have that big lot in the back and they're separating it out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so moved.
Garrett,
Second.
second.
Okay, all in favor, Garrett,
Yes.
Noreen,
Yes,
Arlene?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'll take care of that. I want to come back briefly to the question of 56 Wendell Road.
Mm-hmm.
I have, and I think I circulated to the board, a draft of an order to proceed with demolition within 60 days. And I've been in contact a little bit with Donna McNichol, who alarmed me very much by saying, well, is the town prepared to front the money and then sell the lot to pay for it? And I said, well, wait, I don't want to take their property if we can possibly avoid it. And she sent me some very confusing information about what else could be done. But the upshot was that we can go ahead and issue the order for demolition within 60 days. And then we can we're not required after the 60 days, if nothing happens, to take the owners to court. Right, so there may be other ways around this, and maybe they will comply, who knows? So that's just background here. Just to sum up, this house has been in a burned down condition for something like 5 years, I think, and no significant Wim's in the waiting room. No significant progress has been made in all this time. So I am asking the board to agree to issue a demolition order requiring complete demolition of the house within 60 days. And I know that the person wants to keep a couple of the permanent features, and they have the right to request a hearing and ask for our permission to do that. So that I don't think that's an obstacle for us right now, that we can move forward and issue this order and try to get moving forward.
I just need clarification, if I may request it. That if they are non-compliant and we do choose to go to court, does that mean the town does that lead us down this path of the town then taking their property? Or is that for the courts to decide? I imagine that's why you go to court, is for them to decide, but what do you know?
I don't know a lot about it. I would have to ask Donna some more questions. But I do know that the first thing that happens if you go to court is mediation. That's a requirement. They try to mediate. So whatever happened would be still further down the road, so
Okay,
we'd have 60 days and possibly then after the 60 days go to court, and then we would have this required mediation and attempt to damn it, oh, there's somebody else. Then we would have to see what happened at that point.
Sorry, I'm late.
Well,
Um,
nice
well,
to see you.
we're glad to
and-
have you.
Does our petition for the demolition specify what those permanent features are?
No, we have an order drafted that says raise it to the ground. And I know that they are hoping to salvage the front wall, which is made of redwood or something, and possibly a fireplace. If they continue to want to save those pieces, they have the right, and it's spelled out in the order. They have the right to request a hearing, right, and ask us to amend the order. But
Okay,
it seems a little bit cleaner to me for us to go in and say, take it down, and they may want to come back and say, well, we'll take it down, except these things, if that's all right.
Mhm.
got it.
Is there any other discussion or question on this matter?
No, I would be happy to see the order go through.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion to that effect?
Yes, I would move that we order the owners of 56 Wendell Road to raise the building to the ground within the
60 days.
aforementioned 60-day period. Yeah.
Okay,
Seconded,
okay. All in favor? Wim,
yes.
Arlene,
Yes.
Noreen,
Yes.
Garrett,
Yes.
Kat, yeah. Okay. I will send it out. And I will also reach out personally to the owners and let them know that this is coming, and kind of try to put them in the picture, and also try to get in the picture, because we have not heard from them for a while. They have
For a
not
long time.
responded.
Yeah.
They have not responded to previous attempts,
Right.
but I will try again. Now, the evening's entertainment. We have many people here who are apparently interested in this question of the town is proposing an initiative to mitigate knotweed. And I'm not quite sure where we want to start here. I know that Garrett has some concerns, and I do also, about the proposal that we have seen. And we have Mary Jo here, Mary Jo Maffei, that is, to tell us about the proposal. Garrett, would you like to lead off with your concerns? Do you think that would be a good way to start out?
I think the better way to start would be to hear from Mary Jo first.
Okay,
To
Mary Jo, you have the
Jo.
floor.
Have Mary
Hi.
Jo walk us through the proposal.
Yeah, hold on just one second. I just lost it just a second ago.
Isn't that always the way?
We started the Subduing Knotweed Coalition about last October because we saw such devastation. And so we have been working pretty hard to figure out, solutions. And the more we look, the harder it is to determine any feasible, reasonable solutions. We've spent a good period of time doing a lot of research and trying to be very scientific about it. And we, as a group, I'm leading the coalition, and Pam is leading the Shutesbury, but she also is doing the Conservation Commission. So we wanted to do something here in Shutesbury, but we wanted to be very careful about it. Pam has been in a pollinator group for 20 years. I'm an organic gardener. I've never used herbicides. I certainly didn't go into this thinking that we might use herbicides. And and so it's a very difficult situation. But we don't want it to get to be like Montague or Leverett where people can't. So we have been working with the Conservation Commission and with the Select Board. We've had 3 meetings with the Select Board. We've talked to the Conservation Commission. We're working with Brian Collier, who really is the author of the main portion of this that has been approved by the Conservation Commission, the proposal. But the Select Board asked us to help them. This is actually their document, although we have helped them put it together. Give some facts about why we want to do what we're proposing, and also get to make sure that other groups like your group, because we have a situation in Shutesbury where there's a septic system that had been filled with knotweed, used as fill, and it has knotweed all over it. So we're concerned. And so we've put together, we tried to keep it short, keeps getting longer, but the fact that knotweed is so difficult, it is, in our opinion, it is the worst invasive. It has a monoculture, it has erosion, poor water quality, reducing insect population, reducing fish population, all those kinds of things. And then, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. And then, in addition, we've seen it go through, we have a video that shows it going right through, pulling up concrete. So it's a dangerous invasive that is much more difficult and dangerous than our terrible oriental bittersweet, all of our other invasives in our opinion. Our focus in our group is early detection. So we just had a seminar on using iNaturalist to map knotweed and find it before it grows. Because if we find it very early and you see it on the road, and we have a team of people that we're putting together that will come and help you dig it up, we can really get rid of it and stop it from moving. So our major thrust is to work on trying to early detection and removal. That said, as you probably have seen, it has proliferated in terrible. We have looked the worst way that it is spreading is through mowing. Mowing is the biggest spreader, and that is mainly by highway departments. So we're hoping to be working on training for highway departments in the state of Massachusetts, and trying to get them not to mow it. You can people pull it, but there's evidence that when you pull knotweed, it actually because almost all of its carbohydrates, all of it are underground, it actually goes out, it spreads, and we've seen it go underneath the road and come up on the other side. So often we might be thinking that we got rid of knotweed, but we really haven't. Or it can stay dormant for over 5 to 7 years and then come up again. So these things have actually, pulling it, cutting it, and mowing it are primary ways that knotweed spreads. Tarping can work. It takes at least 5 years. There's a video on Nextdoor Shutesbury that shows tarping and how if there's a little corner, it breaks right through that tarp. So it's a difficult thing, and particularly on an edge of a roadway, it's not really a feasible thing. It can spread, actually 1/8 of an inch of it, that big of its stem can spread. The other problem is that there's a big risk for mechanical removal. One is we just don't have any place to put it. And this video that's on Nextdoor shows in Connecticut, it shows all these DPW highway departments where they put their fill all have knotweed in their highway departments because they have pulled the knotweed out, dropped it, and now it's spreading farther. So those are all difficult. So it's really urgent that we move quickly, because once it gets on the near the water, which is the worst part, then our options are even more limited. There really isn't a good way. There isn't really a good way. I know that a lot of people don't put a lot of credit on the Environmental Protection Agency, but they have really reviewed a lot of work and have found that glyphosate itself that is not as difficult for the human health as they just don't have evidence that it is. It still may be, and we're not. And the other thing about it is that, right now we have corn that's not glyphosate resistant, right? So now we have places all around the country where pilots are spraying knotweed on corn. We have lots and lots of people buying Roundup and spraying in their yards. But what we're talking about is a very, very limited spraying. Very limited. It's a back sprayer. It's going to use very small amount of glyphosate. We're not going to use Roundup. Roundup has surfactants that are more dangerous than glyphosate. So we use an approved thing called Agridete that doesn't have some of those toxic things. Steve Sullivan is very much on board. He has both the time and the experience to do this. He was certified and he let that lapse, and he is hopefully going to be getting his certification very soon. So the proposal is to identify, and we sent this to you, Pam. I think Pam sent it to you, or I sent it to you, the 6 different spots. These are all small spots. None of them are near water. None of them are near homes. So we basically took, although there may be a little more I can add on this, I was just looking this over today, but we basically took the approved process that was approved by the Conservation Commission for the library, and that has been, I believe, already sprayed, and used that. Brian Collier, who put that together, gave us permission to do that along with Mary Ann, the librarian. And so we're hoping to spread, the plan is for Steve, if the town approves it, to do this small spraying in probably September. And then possibly to come back, unlikely to come back, but possibly to come back in October if there's any extra. And the new research coming out of England has shown that there's a possibility that some of the rhizomes can be then sprayed again in the spring. But this is an adaptive plan that Brian said, so it's not absolutely prescriptive. It's based on the way that the knotweed performs. And I'd also like to say that the Nature Conservancy uses this method. The Audubon uses this method. The the National Forest Service uses this type of method to control knotweed. They all recommend for not only knotweed but other invasives, especially the U.S. Department of Forest. That the things I've read that said that in the Appalachians we would not have our forest. Our forest would be gone if they hadn't controlled with a limited herbicide. And this is difficult for our group because we understand and really appreciate how people are against using herbicides, but we believe that this is the balance that we can make to really, I mean, what happens with, we lose so much biodiversity with knotweed because nothing grows. And we also don't have new trees coming, so we don't have the carbon sink that we would have if we didn't have knotweed. So, and the water quality affects the water quality. So that's the water quality and the septic and some of the other things are why we wanted to involve the health department. So that's in a nutshell what we tried to do here. The select board is the ones that asked us to kind of help put this together so that we could get a buy-in, hopefully, to do this work on a very limited basis. But I can be happy to answer any questions.
Mary Jo, you have isolated these 6 parcels. What percentage of all the knotweed you've identified in Shutesbury is included in these 6 parcels?
A very small part, but we wanted to, we wanted to start with a simple, easy to do, and see how that goes, and then move forward with hopefully further.
Mm-hmm. Are there other questions from the board members for Mary Jo?
Yes, but I would like to hear Garrett's concern first.
And Noreen has her hand up, so we'll let Noreen go first.
Yeah, I didn't find, I got the proposal, but I didn't see the 6 areas, and I wonder if that could be addressed or if someone has them.
I did
on the
send
screen
it
or
to
something.
you, Noreen. I actually sent that first and then realized I'd sent the wrong thing. So you do have it. The pieces are, they're mainly on Locks Pond Road, I think.
Kat, I have it open. Do you want me to read the?
Yes, would you think?
Yeah,
I was looking for
that'd be
mine.
great. Thank you, Garrett.
So it's, the first one is Lakeview Road, labeled parcel C35. So 2 patches on the hill on the road. The second parcel is Locks Pond Road, parcel D 109 on the ditch right before Stebbins Road. Third is Locks Pond Road, parcel D 109 from Stebbins Road to 347 Locks Pond. Also on Locks Pond Road, same parcel between 375 and 380 on the road. These patches are all on the right side of the road heading up the hill.
That is to say on the west side.
Fifth is Town Farm Road and corner of Prescott Road. 6 is 21 Cooleyville Road, parcel 051. And Schoolhouse, and then, so there's 7, not 6. Schoolhouse Road between 43 and 54. And then it's labeled as parcel R28 with a question mark. So 7 locations in total.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Garrett, do you want to,
Yeah, so Mary Jo, thank you for the work that the group put into collecting all of this information and putting forward a proposal. I think my biggest concern is that my preference would be to see a management plan in place prior to approving treatment or application of herbicides on particular locations. And the reason for that is that in my mind, the management plan would spell out the process for seeking those approvals. And that the management plan would ideally be jointly developed with the board of the Select Board, Conservation Commission, Board of Health, and working with the Knotweed Task Force group to put together that management plan. So what we were presented with is in part a management plan. And when I went out and looked at other invasive management plans across the Commonwealth, there are a number of elements in the document that we were provided that are in management plans in other communities, but there are also a number of things that aren't there that I think we would probably want to see there. One example would be around, if during an application there was a spill, what are the mediation measures? How do we remediate a spill? Any personal protective requirements for an individual who's doing the application? So that's my primary concern. Is I would prefer to see a management plan in place before being asked to consider herbicide application on any particular location.
I can respond to that. I think we'd be more than happy to do that. We used pretty much, although there are parts of the other, as I was looking at it just earlier today, I realized that there were parts of the plan that was done for the library that was approved that we didn't include in ours that we could add. But the one that Brian did for the library that was approved by the Select Board and the Conservation Commission didn't have these in it, but I would think that that's a good idea, and I would be happy to put those, research that and put those in it, and work with you, Garrett, or whoever, to make sure those things are there. And I do think that we might thinking it through it a bit, I kind of agree with you that we wanted to do something this year. We wanted to try to move forward this year. And so we thought that if we just tried this with a small thing, we could at least kind of get our ducks in order. And then next year move forward. But I think that you're right. I think a more comprehensive plan would be good. And even if that means we can't do it this year, which would be a disappointment, just because we feel like we really want to move forward and we know how fast it grows. But on the other hand, if there's other things, or if you can send me a copy of some of those other ones, we could certainly add that, and I'd be very happy to do that. And I think maybe we want to keep it adaptive management. Apparently, I've read up on adaptive management versus prescriptive management, and the idea is that you don't want to say, I'm going to exactly do this if the knotweed does X or Y, so that's a little bit making it slightly more difficult for me to understand how to do it, but I really think that we could do those things, and those are good suggestions.
And Mary Jo, do you know, at these 7 locations, have there been other mitigation actions taken
As-
outside of spraying?
We don't believe so. There are places in Shutesbury, and this is why Shutesbury doesn't look like Leverett and Montague, because there was previously spraying that was done. And that has kept things up, but we did notice that some of the places sprayed are back. So these are looking, in fact, we're thinking that the one on Schoolhouse Road may be able to be dug up. That's our hope. And then, and the other thing is, if we're digging up, we also need to put in plans on how to do that, because that's important too. So we can put that in too.
I would like to see a sort of hierarchy of mitigation actions in order of desirability, right? With probably spraying being the least desirable and digging up perhaps being the most desirable, and then
Right.
having that as part of the mitigation plan, so that there would be specific steps. Okay, either we've tried this or we haven't tried it, but we can see that it wouldn't work because.
Right. And we did put in there that, the tarping doesn't work on the road. There's just no way to do that on the road. The other problem is we can only really dig up small patches at this point in Massachusetts. Now in England, they can, because they have ways of digging it up and then mitigating it afterwards.
Right. I'm not asking you to defend any particular way. What I'm saying is that in the management plan, I think that should be part of it, that there would be.
Okay, sure.
All the possibilities and their
Right.
pros and cons, and where they can be used and where they can't.
Yeah, and I think we have some of that in here, but we could make it a little more explicit, because we do have just as notes about how really the only thing we can do to large patches is spray. Small patches, very small patches, we can try to dig, but large patches on roads, the only thing we can do is spray.
All right. Wim?
I appreciate your concern, and the work you've done so far. My question is about the mechanics of spraying. So you said that, Steve did have a registered applicator's license, but it lapsed. I wonder about, whether that license, I believe, for public lands would have to be in force in order for someone to actually spray. And I wonder about the patches you said that have already been sprayed.
Oh,
Were
that
those
was
on-
like 7 years ago.
And were they on private property?
I don't know, they were around the Shutesbury Town Hall. And some of that was not sprayed, but wiped. And then I know that there was a patch on West Pelham Road that was sprayed about 7 years ago and now is back.
Got it. So, yeah, I mean, glyphosate has had a tremendous amount of press. I think that it is a chemical that you really do need a licensed person to apply.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I also, from my understanding of it as a farmer, is that it is much more effective when the target plant is actively growing. So I think although there is, we appreciate your sense of urgency, I think that it would be much more effective in the spring. The growing season is over.
No, not with all the research shows that September is the time to do it, because in September in August, but mostly in September, it is pulling all of its carbohydrates down into the rhizomes. So if you're spraying earlier, there is a possibility that there's certain kinds of parts, I don't understand this at all completely, but parts of that don't get hit in the September. But the main way to do it is before it freezes, before a frost, and in September, because at that time in the spring the nutrients are coming up. Well, in the fall, the knotweed pulls its nutrients down. So nutrients, September is, if you watch the video that was done in Connecticut, they spray in September. That is a pretty well documented thing, that spraying in September is the time to spray.
All right. And what about resistance? Is there knotweed resistance to glyphosate?
There is, and we had a whole email chain about discussion of that, and Brian felt like the process that we were doing wouldn't have that problem.
Because
Yeah, I can't tell you right now exactly why, but he said that we had this brought up, and we had a discussion, and he felt like this was not an issue if we did it the way he was saying to do it. I can ask for more information, but that's what he said. There are cases, and I think a lot of those cases are mostly ones where it wasn't done properly. It wasn't done in the fall. So I think you get the more resistance if you're doing it in the spring and not in the fall, where people have sprayed thinking, the logic that you had, and that doesn't really do anything to kill the rhizomes. It kills the top, but the rhizomes are so strong that doesn't kill them. It often starts them moving outward. So I think that the most of the resistance happens when it's not sprayed enough, it's not followed up. Those kinds of things are what I think are the main reasons, but I don't know exactly for sure. I just know that we had this discussion, and Brian said he didn't think it was an issue at this point.
Mary
Right.
Jo, are you aware if there's any difference in efficacy between spraying, wiping, and injection?
So I think injection can work. I think that and that is something we really did consider and want, but I think that Brian felt and Steve felt that that wasn't that feasible given the sizes and and then wiping really wasn't going to work either unless you have just a very small teeny patch.
Okay. I also have a question about sort of jurisdictional issues. Who has the right to permit or to stop these treatments?
So that's a good question, and I'm not an expert on that for sure, but I believe that if it's not near water and it's on the right of way of a road, that the superintendent and the select board have jurisdiction, that it's not something that the Conservation Commission has jurisdiction over, or the Board of Health or anyone else. I believe on a right of way, the select board and the highway are the ones that can do that. That said, we have chosen to involve you and the Conservation Commission because we wanted to make sure that, you know, we wanted to present what we had, see what was issues, you know, work with you. As you see, it says it's a draft. It's not in stone at all. We were just starting out with the best we could. And, you know, and basically following the directions of all three members of the select board who have, you know, both have all said they want something like this and would like, you know, particularly the Conservation Commission. We made the decision to involve you because we did think that there's a Board of Health issues involved, and that you have knowledge of things that we might not have, and so we wanted to involve you. But I think the real jurisdiction in these patches that are all very close to the road, all very much in the right of way, all very lone, is really the superintendent and the select board.
Okay. And now I attended that workshop at the elementary school that Brian did. I think that was Brian. And I believe I heard him say that the pure glyphosate that's not in, for example, Roundup, that's not commercially available to you know, civilians. That basically you have to be probably a licensed pesticide applicator. Do you know anything about that?
Well, I just yesterday talked to someone from the Mass Audubon who has done this work, and she seemed to think you could get it at places like Agway or stuff. So I'm not sure, but she seems to think that it was available.
And so I'm assuming that homeowners who have knotweed on their property that's not in the jurisdictional area governed by the Conservation Commission have the right to take action on it with this.
Yes, they do. They do. So yeah, they do. And that's, you know, we absolutely do not recommend to homeowners that they use chemicals. We don't recommend that at all. We have 3 vetted professional licensed people on our website, and we steer people to that. We do tell them about early digging, and we do tell them about very, very important is how to dispose of anything you dig, which has to be put on an impervious surface and dried before getting rid of it. And even putting it in plastic bags can be problematic. It can just go right through the plastic bags. So we do give that information out. We do have that on the website. We're working on more information for people. We just put this video, or Stevie Dunn, who does our mapping and iNaturalist work, he put that on next door. So we really encourage people to watch that video and to read once we get this fact sheet done, even if we're not actually doing the proposal right now, we would like to get that fact sheet out to the public so that they can, look at the resources that we have. We're going to be adding the Nature Conservancy's information on that, just because we just found out about that. So we absolutely do not ask and recommend people do that. And we don't really have good solutions. And that's part of the problem, is if we had good solutions, we would be using that. But, it's so difficult, and it's so awful to go down the Deerfield River and see what's there.
Quite. Tell me about the website. Where is this website?
So the website, on this thing here, there's a QR code to the website. And then there's a link on your thing, Knotweed Control, Subduing Knotweed Coalition. Here's our website.
Okay.
And there's our link. It is a work in process. Don't have quite as much information as we would like, but we are working on that.
Okay. Are there more questions and comments from the Board of Health?
I had a question just briefly, Mary Jo, when you referred earlier to wanting to avoid the situation that Leverett and Montague have found themselves. Well, I imagine you're referring to a bad problem with roadside overgrowth or maybe encroaching beyond roadsides, but
What
was
river,
that
waterways particularly.
Okay, and that is because they took no action, or they
took no action.
They took no action at all. Okay,
As far as we know, we
Okay.
haven't seen evidence of action.
Okay.
Certainly in New Hampshire, we've seen a lot of evidence where people are the towns are controlling it on their rural roads.
Okay.
In Connecticut, they've the scenic, can't remember the river, but the scenic river there, they've been controlling it there. But it without action, it's going to continue to it's just going to continue to get worse and worse, and it's going to get more. Roads have their problems, but in reality, what really worries us is the waterways.
Waterways. Okay. I just wasn't sure if it was no action at all, or if they had pursued a different course that
Right.
complicated.
Yeah,
worsened
and
the
actually
problem.
they've mowed it, and that's what really spreads it. So
Yeah.
mowing it is the worst thing, and we would like to get training in the state for highway departments and the state to stop mowing it. Amherst is still mowing it despite people asking them not to.
I
What's
see.
the alternative to mowing?
So herbicides really is not mowing it and using herbicides.
And is there any evidence to support the use of horticultural vinegar?
No, there is none. And I just talked to the person, and vinegar is actually worse for our environment than glyphosate. Vinegar does not degrade. Glyphosate degrades. If there's micro action, it can be gone in like 2 weeks. And it clings to the soil. So as it's going down that spit, it is clinging to the soil. Unless you had a huge flood, there's almost no way it's going to get into water systems because it clings to the soil. Vinegar, on the other hand, is actually dangerous. You really do need to use. We actually use some vinegar on. We did some patches on Pelham Hill Road because the chair of the Conservation Commission had suggested that might be an alternative, and it did not kill the knotweed. So vinegar is actually worse than glyphosate. Glyphosate degrades, especially in where we live, where there's a lot of microbes. It'll degrade very quickly, and it'll cling. Well, vinegar will go right into the water systems, really bad for amphibians, really bad for fish. What else did she say it was bad for? I can't remember, but it's not a good thing. So vinegar is actually worse.
Okay,
Salt is even worse.
thank you.
Naturally. So it's sounding actually, Mary Jo, like you've got 3 documents here. You've got an action plan for a sort of pilot program for your 6 or 7 chosen sites. You've got a management plan that needs to be evolved, and you've got a fact sheet for public consumption.
Yeah, and originally they were 2 documents, and we just ended up somehow putting them into one document. But that is true.
Yeah, it seems to me that you're going to need to take them back apart and work on each one separately and in greater depth and detail. That's my
Yeah, and that's a fair suggestion. That's a fair suggestion. There were pros and cons to both, and we ended up with this. Which was
Mary Jo, what's been the outcome of at the library site where spraying has already occurred? Was it
I actually don't know for sure that it occurred. It was supposed to occur in the beginning of and I don't know the results of that.
Thank you.
Am I correct in reading the sense of the meeting that we would not want to take action to approve or disapprove this document at this time, that we would want a more fleshed out document? That ideally would be presented to us at our next meeting, which would be September 4th.
And Mary Jo, earlier you said that the management plan, the owner of the management plan is the select board.
Yes.
My preference would be for there to be a management plan in place that spells out the conditions that the town puts in place for considering application.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
So based on the document that we were provided, to me, the way that it reads is that we're looking for the select board, the Conservation Commission, the Board of Health, and the town administrator to sign off on a plan. And in a management plan, I would want to see that process outlined. And what roles and responsibilities the Conservation Commission has for approval compared to the Board of Health.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite understanding that, but maybe we could talk offline or something. I don't know if we could do that.
Well, for example, I think you said that for roadways, it's really the purview of the Board of Health and not the Board of Health, the Select Board and the
Highway.
The Highway Department, right?
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah.
And I was also seeing that I think I saw the proposal that had places for every single member of the Board of Health to sign off. And it, as opposed to just the board taking action and then a signature from the Board of Health, if that's even required, but it didn't seem to me like a signature from every member of the board was needed.
I would agree.
About that, Kat.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. We really weren't sure. One of
Yeah.
our committee members who had been on a conservation commission seemed to think that was the way to do it, but
Okay,
we're absolutely
Yeah.
fine with that. That was just like you said, like we said, a draft.
right, okay.
So to reiterate here, you are seeking our signatures at the request of the select board?
I believe so. I don't know why I'm here doing it instead of them,
Right.
but
Right.
but I care about it and they're busy,
And we
so.
appreciate your being here.
So,
Yes, indeed.
yes, because it's not, we're here to help.
Yeah.
We're here to help the town. You know, if the town doesn't want to do this, then that's the town's,
Right.
then that's the
Right.
town's view.
Right.
But I think one of the things was that when there was spraying, that Stephen Sullivan really felt like he was being attacked a lot.
Oh,
And I
gee.
think that we don't want that to happen again.
Right.
So I think that Steve has been just amazing and very, really careful, really willing to do this, really, and we don't want him to be attacked for doing this. We want it to be something that the town has stood by, and we want to do it right. If we can't do it this year, then we can't do it this year. But we do want to do it right, and I think that was the motivation. And the select board too, and I have been attacked. We've been kind of viciously attacked. And
Verbal, you mean verbally?
verbally.
Has Steve's been attacked verbally or not anybody
I believe
approaching him?
verbally. I believe verbally.
Okay.
I believe
All right.
verbally. I don't
Like-
think, as far as I know, no one has attacked him
He doesn't
physically.
need police protection.
But the point is, I think that they wanted to really cover their bases, and
Yeah.
I actually suggested the Board of Health because I thought, like I said, you guys have a lot of knowledge, and it does affect, the water quality, and other things are under your purview. And so we wanted to do that. But, so far, I just think your suggestions are better than ours, and that's a learning process, and that's partly why we wanted to include you.
So the thing that ultimately we would be willing or not willing to sign, but the thing that would be appropriate for us to sign, it seems to me, is a management plan. Simply
Okay.
a management plan that spells out everything that can and could be done and how it is to be done. As far as signing off on individual treatments on individual sites, that does not seem to be our
Purview.
our jurisdiction. Do the rest of the Board of Health, do you feel the same way?
I do.
Well, yeah, if the decision making is exclusively in the hands of the select board and the highway department, yes. For roadsides, I mean.
Right.
Mhm.
I agree.
So can I just ask, I'm interested in the biology of this plant, and so I understand I've been corrected about the peculiarity of the translocation of carbohydrates, and in the fall is the appropriate time to spray. But once this knotweed sets seed, isn't it true that it doesn't matter if you spray it, if there's already seed? Because doesn't it also spread by seed?
It really doesn't spread by seed, at least the knotweed that we're talking about, the regular knotweed we have here. It is pretty much asexual. There's studies that show that all the knotweed, and I can't quote this exactly, so I could be wrong about the geographics, but some studies have looked and it's the same plant. There's like one plant. It's an asexual. There are some types of knotweed that do seed, and then there are some hybrids that do seed. But at this point, as far as I'm aware, that's not what we're dealing with. So it does have flowers and it does have pollinators, but it doesn't really spread by seed.
It's covered with flowers, but they're sterile, is what you're saying.
Apparently.
Yeah, I heard Brian say the same thing back in the spring.
Yeah, and I mean, in that regard, it's a little bit, that's an advantage because we don't have birds and such spreading it. So that is one of the few things that makes it a little better.
Mhm.
Yep.
Good question, though.
I would think that we would like to continue this discussion.
Sure.
To our next meeting, with some more detailed pros
Yeah.
from you, if that can
Right.
happen.
Yeah. So my thought is that we'll take sort of the fact sheet stuff and put that in a different document and come to you with more of the management plan that has some of the details that Garrett talked about. If I give you my email is on you have my email.
Yeah.
If you could send me some of that stuff and I could communicate with you a little bit ahead of the meeting to see if, so I can make some changes that you think are appropriate, I'd be really happy to do that.
And Mary Jo, this document's also been shared with the Conservation Commission, I assume?
It is, and the meeting is tomorrow night.
Okay, great. So there's similar conversation going on with them.
Right.
Is this document, excuse me, is this document available online for the public? I don't see it on any of the town websites or the Knotweed Coalition website.
No, I don't know who's speaking, but.
Sorry, I'm
spoke?
interrupting and I apologize, but you've been talking
No,
about.
it is not, it's not a public document at this point, it's just a draft document.
So there was I'm sorry, may I ask, I'm just trying to understand, is there?
I'm sorry, I don't know who I'm speaking with.
Miriam DeFont, and I understood there was something the Conservation Commission had approved, and there sounds like there's a map with locations, and I don't see any of this available online for the public, even though it sounds like some decisions have been made about those.
No, there's been no decisions made about any of this. This is all new, and it's all draft form, so none of it has been available. We're very much hoping to get something out soon, and we maybe get the fact sheet out without the management soon that would be available through the select board in whatever way they wanted to use the fact sheet. We can do that. But at this point, no, this is just a internal draft document as far as I know.
I've had my hand raised for about 45 minutes, and I'm just wondering, for Madam Chair, would you allow some questions from the public?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would, provided that the other Board of Health members are finished with their discussion. Is there any more discussion, or can I take questions from the public now? Okay, hearing none. Miriam, you have the floor.
Thank you. So this is Miriam DeFont from 74 Pratt Corner Road. Thank you for your information, Mary Jo. I really appreciate it, and thoughtful questions from the Board of Health. I have some comments and just a couple of questions. couple comments that I have is that, and maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding was that vinegar does biodegrade. It doesn't degrade easily in bottles if it's stored, but my understanding was in nature, when it's subject to other kind of biological processes, it does break down. I might be wrong about that. One of the procedures that I didn't hear discussed, and I'm hoping that the Knotweed Coalition will look at it, is what's been described as mesh girdling as an alternative to tarping, where a metal mesh is staked down over a cut and treated area so that it doesn't allow it to flower or leaf out, and it starves the roots of carbohydrates and eventually helps to weaken and kill the plant. And that is probably a more labor intensive and more useful strategy along roadsides because it's more rugged than plastic. And I hope the coalition will at least look at those options. I don't know if you're aware of it or the Board of Health is aware of it, but a group of residents have had concerns and a petition was started to raise awareness about this. And as of tonight, we have over 100 signatures from Shutesbury residents, which I think speaks to the need for public engagement and participation. So it's concerning that some of these plans and details that are being discussed internally are not being made available to the public, because I think the public wants to know more about where is the spraying going to happen? What is it going to look like? What is the overall plan going to look like? And wondering what the process will be in terms of engagement from abutters. If a particular location is going to be sprayed, will abutters be given an opportunity to weigh in before that happens? Will they be notified? Will the town look to see if there are any sensitive areas on people's abutting property that might be affected by the spraying? Perhaps there's a garden or trees or a vernal pool that perhaps the highway department can't see from the road, but an abutter might provide that information and have concerns about it. So I just feel like the public engagement piece is really important. Whether or not we want to debate about glyphosate, I think is not a topic for tonight, but I think that the process of engagement and public communication and having a two-way conversation with abutters is really important. In terms of jurisdiction, I haven't communicated directly with the Conservation Commission, but I've looked over the regulations around what is exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act and what is not. And if you are doing repair work within the paved footprint of the road, which is the paved footprint of the road, that is usually considered to be exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act. But vegetation removal in the right-of-way is not considered exempt. And in fact, that's why highway departments across the state apply for bundled notices of intent with conservation commissions in order to do vegetation removal in resource areas in the rights of way. I'm aware from just the locations you mentioned, from my own knowledge of town, that a couple of those locations are in riverfront area of a perennial stream. So they are in an area under the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act, and probably the bylaw as well. And under the Wetlands Protection Act, herbicide spraying in the riverfront area is not exempt and usually is requiring a notice of intent. In fact, if you look at the paperwork and the regulations for notices of intent, they even mention herbicides spraying. So it is a thing that notices of intent are, particularly in riverfront area or areas of that sort. If it's not in riverfront area, if it's just in the buffer zone, the Wetlands Protection Act requires that an RDA be submitted with a professional delineation. So I guess what I'm wondering about is there a plan for a professional delineation that will also include communicating with the abutters to make sure that any resource areas that are outside of the right-of-way are known to the delineator? Because again, you could have a hedge and a wetland right on the other side of the hedge, and somebody looking from the road wouldn't necessarily know that there's a vernal pool or a BVW if it's hidden from view. And yet the right-of-way would be in the buffer zone of that resource area. So a professional delineation would be in order for an RDA at the very least. And that's just under the Wetlands Protection Act. That's not even looking at what our bylaw would require. So those are questions I have, and maybe those are questions best left for the Conservation Commission, but I'm surprised to hear that the Conservation Commission doesn't believe it has any jurisdiction in this matter, because Other conservation commissions have issued notices of intent. I'm sorry, orders of conditions for things very similar to this. But that is not really a conversation for tonight, I think. But I think that if you can make more information available on your website, I think that would be helpful to the public. And just for purposes of tonight's meeting, since you've discussed it, you went through the list of sites pretty quickly. Would you be willing to go over that list one more time, or just show the list on screen share briefly so it's on the recording? You know, I think that would be helpful for people who are watching this recording or people who are here tonight. Thank you.
Garrett, do you still have that list of sites available?
I have it up.
Yep, no, I've got it.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
so
Here, hang on. I was thinking if you have it there, you could do it as a screen share.
can you allow me to share?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I guess I have to make you co-host. And then you can screen share.
All right, just give me a moment here.
Sure. While you are doing that, Mary Jo, the other Mary Jo, I'm sorry, I forgot your last name, Johnson, did you have something to say?
Yes, I did have I have a question. I just wanted clarification. Did you say that the library site had been sprayed recently or might be sprayed in the near future?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I drove by it today and I saw what looked like some glyphosate that was not in good condition. But just in regard to that, and I know that this is potentially controversial, so I understand why there might be some reluctance, but usually when homeowners put herbicide on a lawn, they'll put a little sign out saying that that's what they've done. And I personally walk up and down Locks Pond Road pretty regularly with my dog, and as other people also walk along that road with pets and children. I think it's important, if it's not already a part of your plan, to include some way of informing the public about what is going to happen and what has happened. I think for courtesy, for a right to know. And given this is the first that I've heard of the plan, so given that it would appear that this is going to be kind of an ongoing thing and probably a good discussion, I hope that people are really open to involving the public in the conversation, because it will give you, in the end, whatever the decisions are made about it, it probably will give you more public support, which it sounds like is something that would be really nice for the highway department, at least in terms of carrying out whatever you're going to do. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. I agree that that more information for the public is probably, all through the process, both planning and execution, is desirable. And of course, that is not within our purview here. These, I think, are matters for the select board, and I hope that you will bring them up there. Do we have more to say on this, or can we adjourn?
Miriam's hand is still raised. I don't know if she has another question or if she.
Yeah, just the question I guess I had was, has there been any professional delineation around these 7 locations?
No, so all that is to be decided by the Conservation Commission, and we have no we don't know about that, and that's all within the purview of the Conservation Commission. So we are bringing this to them tomorrow night, and that's, you know, that's up to them. They may decide that, you know, they don't want to do it at all, so then it won't be necessary. So we're just trying to help the town, you know, and yeah, so that's all we have. We have these sites were just picked as least likely to be problematic, to see how that worked and to go through the process. So no, they have not been.
Thank you.
If there's nothing more from the Board of Health, I would happily entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor? Wim,
yes.
Arlene,
Yes.
Noreen? Noreen, you there?
Yes.
There she is. Garrett?
Yes.
Okay, and Kat. So the meeting is adjourned at 8:25, and we will continue this discussion, assuming that the Knotweed Committee provides us with more information for our September 4th meeting.
Right. Thanks very much to the committee for your work. Very much.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Important stuff.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much,
Thanks.
and good night.